Thank you, Convener. John or Sandra, can we start the live stream, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, members. And our partner agencies, Scottish Fire and Rescue, Police Scotland, and I think we've got representatives here from the Angus Adult Protection Committee, as well as our own council office. So good afternoon to you all, and I hope you're surviving this cold weather. Mrs. Maley, are there any apologies or substitutions, please?
Apologies today, Convener, from Councillor Derek Wan, substituted today by Councillor Ian McLaren.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any declarations of interest or statements of transparency? No. Okay, thank you. And the agenda item number 3, the minutes of the previous meeting of this committee, they are submitted for approval as a correct record. This meeting of this committee of the 31st of January 2023. Do we agree that they are a correct record of that meeting?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Let's go straight on to agenda item number 4, and welcome Commander Jason Sharp and Group Commander Mark Lowe to this meeting of the Scrutiny Audit Committee, and it's the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service quarterly monitoring report. So I'll just pass to you, officers, and just whoever's going to speak to this report. Thank you.
Thank you, and good afternoon. I know you've all met me before, but I'd like to introduce Group Commander Mark Lowe, who's now in charge of the Fire and Rescue Service assets within Angus. I'll hand over to Mark in a minute to talk through the detail of the report and answer questions. But if just indulge me for a minute or so, I'll just give some high-level overview, if that's okay. Conscious doesn't quite sit within the reporting period, but for 2023 has been extremely challenging for us so far. My sincere thanks goes out to Police Scotland colleagues, Scottish Ambulance Service and Resilience Partnerships with the work that's went on across Scotland, in particular within the Perth and Ross Angus and Dundee area, which leads me on to priority 1 again. That's accidental intentional dwelling fires, not within this reporting period, but you'll be aware we unfortunately had a gentleman passed away following a fire in Andrew Smythe Gardens. Our thoughts are with his family and friends just now, but we are continuing to support Police Scotland with investigation. Group Commander Lowe will facilitate a case conference in this unfortunate circumstance also. Looking at priority 2, improving fire safety, resilience and business continuity. Just to give you some comfort, we've worked within the business sector to identify similar properties to the New County Hotel that we dealt with in Perth City Centre at the start of the year, and to review any outstanding prevention and protection matters. And we've also returned to our pre-pandemic fire safety audit targets, just to give you some assurance in there. Priority 3, minimising the impact of unintentional harm. At the start of this month, we launched our Care for Your Countryside campaign, where we aim to highlight key safety messages for local communities, authorities and key regional stakeholders during the spring. So that's going to run across multiple digital channels, including our own website and social media. Priority 6 for us, that's effective risk management and operational preparedness. We've increased the training within our on-call volunteer units across the wider Tayside area. We've also introduced powered rescue equipment, that's road traffic collision equipment, into all our volunteer units and the second appliances within the Angus area. We're also in the process of replacing our rostering and availability system for all of our on-call staff within the wider Tayside area, which will give us greater visibility and functionality, resilience across our on-call stations. Finally, for myself, we see preparedness as a key priority for us. So Mark is working with his management team and leading on developing a new approach to leadership and management training for all of our staff, which we'll be piloting in the coming months. I'll hold there and I'll bring Mark in to go into some more detail, and we'll open up for questions.
Thank you. Hope you can all hear me okay. And looking on Convener, I trust you've all had a chance to read the reports, so I'm going to let me add a little bit of context to each area. And as Jason has said, we'll happily take any questions from there. So priority 1, improving fire safety in the home, pages 19 to 21 in the pack. We've had 12 accidental dwelling fires over the quarter. 11 of these were limited to the item first ignited or the room of origin, potential caravan at a commercial site in West Angus. There were no fire fatalities or casualties within this reporting period. Priority 2, improve fire safety and resilience within the business community. Again, pages 22 to 23. There were 4 non-domestic building fires over this reporting period, 2 of which were significant incidents at farm buildings. Both were down to accidental cause. 1 further significant fire at a former church, and finally a small fire with an electrical device due to a fault within the equipment. Again, no fire-related casualties or fatalities within this reporting period for priority 2. Priority 3, minimising the impact of unintentional harm, pages 24 to 25 in the pack. We attended 22 RTC-related incidents related in a fatality. There were a further 12 casualties, of which only 3 required further hospital treatment. Again, this remains above the 3-year average, but there is no immediate emerging issues or trends to locations for this type of incident. The only trend from this reporting period is the majority of incidents where casualties are reported occur between 3 o'clock and 7 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and 7 o'clock at night. Other special service incidents, again, were particularly high for this quarter. This was mainly due to the significant weather encountered on the 18th of November. I'm sure you'll remember that from last year, where we required to respond to 32 incidents, with 4 of these resulting in rescues to persons or persons. Affecting entry for partner agency remains high within this reporting period, again supporting partners with 43 incidents where they had concerns for occupants of the premises. Priority 4 is reducing unwanted fire alarm signals, pages 26 to 27 in the pack. UFAS incidents, again, totaled 82 for this reporting period, with 1 educational premises totalling 11 UFAS incidents for various reasons. Due to the number and the high number of this, Angus Fire Safety Enforcement Officer and the Community Action Team have been involved in supporting the school's management team to reduce the numbers of UFAS incidents. The next highest numbers beyond that were 4 from an NHS premises and again 3 from a secure unit, which were both mainly attributed to equipment faults within the fire alarm system. I've no doubt you're aware, and I'd like to draw your awareness to our policy of reducing unwanted fire alarm signals. Again, as you may be aware, it's planned from the 1st of July this year that the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service will stop attending automatic fire alarms at commercial businesses and workplace premises, like factory shops, offices, shops and leisure facilities, unless a fire has been confirmed. This change does not apply to sleeping risks such as hospitals, care homes, hotels or domestic dwellings. This will result in our operations control challenging anyone within the shops, offices or factories before sending a resource. This change follows the public consultation held back in 2021. We're carrying out a number of duty holder engagement events, one of which has been recorded and is available on the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service's YouTube channel, so I can direct you there, or further information can be located with this website by navigating to your safety tab, then on to business advice, and then further again onto unwanted fire alarm signals. Point 5, reducing deliberate fires, again pages 28 and 29 in the meeting pack. There were 19 deliberate secondary fires through the reporting period, with 6 of these being reported within the Carnoustie area, golf course and 1 around the Shanwell Cemetery area, all involving grassland. So the community prevention work continues both in the wider community action team. Again, there's no further trends beyond that in any other areas across Angus. Effective risk management and operational preparedness. Not a great deal to report from the previous quarter. What I would like to draw your attention to is planning is underway to a multi-agency heavy rescue exercise at the Caledonian Railway in Montrose, between Montrose and Brecon, involving both Police Scotland, British Transport Police, Scottish Ambulance Service and Network Rail. This is to test both local and national resilience in this incident type, and the exercise is planned for Friday 21st of April, but may be subject to short notice change. So I'd welcome anybody to come along and view what's going on at that exercise. Moving on to Appendix 1, Community Safety Engagement Programmes. Again, you'll see a host of continued programmes going on throughout the quarter. Again, 202 home fire safety visits carried out, 150 by the 6 stations and 52 from the Angus Community Action Team. There were 21 hard of hearing smoke alarms fitted during this period and 22 adult protection referral forms submitted to partners. Again, we continue to work hand in hand with partners to ensure we get out to those at the greatest risk of fire. Again, Appendix 2, notable events. A number of pages on this, so I'll try and highlight where we can here, pages 32 to 36 in the meeting pack. The second fire skills programme at Rossi School was completed within this reporting period and has seen a significant reduction in fire-related events at this premises. It's also provided some great educational benefits for those within the secure premises. Community of Glenlethnot were cut off from LGV access after the severe weather, as previously discussed here on the 18th of November. Again, this was after damage to the main access bridge. This has resulted in the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service having to put in place a revised mobilising strategy to reach homes and occupiers beyond the Craigendowie Bridge. This is done by utilising a 4x4 resource, which is currently based at Brecon Fire Station. Due to the increased response time, the Angus Community Action Team, along with colleagues from Dundee, delivered home fire safety visits to all occupants of the Glenlethnot area to reduce the likelihood of fire-related incidents within this area. The Angus Community Action Team have also had a work placement programme run in conjunction with the Fire Skills programme, where candidates were asked to apply and interview for a placement within the Community Action Team itself. This gave the successful candidate the opportunity to work in the Community Action Team and all applicants to develop through the application and interview process for that position. Again, community work remains at the heart of the engagement activity by Angus crews, with a number of initiatives carried out running up into including Christmas Day. These included food parcels, Christmas presents and Christmas Day home visits by the crews to those that would be spending the day alone in their homes. And finally, I'm sure you'll have seen over the social media sites, the team at Carnoustie Fire Station are hosting a tri-service community event with colleagues from Police Scotland and Scottish Ambulance Service tomorrow night between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. The purpose is to allow members of the public to discuss any local concerns and get a better understanding of the areas where each can support the local community. All are welcome to attend and see exactly what goes on within that premises. Convener, that ends the report, and I'll quite happily open up to any questions from the group.
Thank you very much, Commander. I'll let Councillor Bell go first. I have one. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Convener. That was kind of you. Thank you very much, and it's good to meet you, Mark. Welcome to the role. I guess, like everyone else on this call, I really appreciate the community engagement work that the service carries out, and there's no doubting the worth of it. Could I just pick up on the unwanted fire alarm signal issue? And I know everyone's budgets are tight, so I did a little bit of digging to see how much these were costing every year. And I think nationally, the last figure I could find was £1 million in 2019. And I just wondered if you have an updated figure on that, because obviously this forms part of the rationale for the new process, and how much that costs the service in Angus and Tayside, if you have any figures off the top of your head, and hopefully how much you're hoping to be able to save within the service for the introduction of the new process. Thanks.
Thank you. Offhand, no, I do not have a cost analysis on that, but I would like to also consider that with this, there's the reduced road risk of appliances going through these types of incidents. There's also time given to these types of incidents where personnel could be training and utilising their skills or enhancing their skills that they've got at the time. I don't have a figure at the moment, but I'll get a figure and come back to the group at the next meeting, or I can give you that figure straight to yourself, Councillor Bell, if that would be any benefit.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Doran?
Right, thank you. Mine relates to kind of some of the way in which the stats are reported, particularly around road traffic incidents, and it's just so that I can kind of compare them with how the police report these as well. So can you just talk me through, there's obviously you've got three categories. There's fatal road traffic collisions, then there's road traffic collisions and non-fatal road traffic collisions. So can you just mention how those three categories, what one is self-explanatory, but two of them, how what's included in each of those, and what does that mean that every road traffic collision in the area is included in those stats? Thanks.
Yes, so a lot of road traffic collisions, obviously the ones, the sad one we had in the supporting period with one fatality, and then you have those that have significant injuries beyond that. And then you have the other road traffic accidents that would not be recorded within this because there's no injuries or injuries to persons within the vehicles at that point. So it's mainly just those that have a fatality or a casualty within them.
Okay, thanks. Can you just clarify what is it that would qualify within it to be significant injury?
That would probably be best answered by colleagues from Scottish Ambulance Service to that. They would be able to tell, they've got the medical background to be able to tell to that. Anything where we report or anybody requires any kind of medical treatment from Scottish Ambulance Service would be included in our stats.
Okay, thank you. It's just so that I get a bit better understanding of that one. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you both. Councillor Devine?
Yes, okay. Yeah, could I just pop in for a second on that?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Hi, Councillor Doran, that's a really good question regarding extent of injuries. What we'll do is Mark and myself will pick up with our stats team on KPIs, and we'll give you a detailed response on that after the meeting.
That'd be great. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Devine?
Yeah, thanks, convener, and thanks, Mark. Ask you about when the new regime for unwanted fire alarm signals was going to come into place, but you answered that in your presentation, so thank you. You didn't mention where schools are going to sit in that. Are they going to be treated as workplaces? And so the fires would have to be confirmed before you would go out, because obviously, well, at least one school is causing a lot of problems, but hopefully this will save you a huge amount of effort and money.
Yes, so schools will not fall under the sleeping risk category. So they will fall under normal business premises. Obviously, the risk is where people are asleep at night and fires can develop. So again, that's not expected to be in a school type premises. So again, they would fall under the factory, office, shops type scenario. But again, we can confirm that. Just I'm comfortable with that answer, actually.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Councillor Proctor?
Thank you very much, convener. Thank you very much, both Jason and Mark, for your excellent briefing and for the good report. And I'm really, really pleased to see that events involving the community really coming back on, and the pictures in the report, really good to see the children involved, and that's good. My question really is to deal with the local area. Lintraithen Loch, in the past we've had quite a lot of unsocial and antisocial behaviour up there, and Fire and Rescue Service have been involved in the past. Are you sort of thinking, maybe you mentioned about the spring weather, the better weather coming in, have you maybe been able to programme something in a bit proactive where you can maybe visit or look at that particular site? Because public are genuinely concerned about what often goes on there. That's it's really a bit of jointery between yourselves and your colleagues in Police Scotland. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Proctor, for that question. And I realise we ran quite an extensive programme there before with colleagues from Police Scotland. And again, that would be our aim to, again, see that and see the benefits from that intervention with colleagues from Police Scotland to try and prevent the antisocial behaviour. Again, not around Lintrath and Loch alone, but around all these kind of beautiful nature spots that we have around Angus.
Thanks very much for that, Mark. That's quite reassuring. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Councillor Speed.
Thanks, convener. Thanks, Mark and Jason. I just wondered if you could just describe a little bit of the work that's been done with the Health and Social Care Partnership, kind of out with your kind of day-to-day kind of daily business that you'll have with them, but just, yeah, what events and kind of training and development kind of opportunities are taking place there to help prevent?
Thank you, Councillor Speed. Relatively new to the department, as you're no doubt aware, and Scott Gibson probably would have been much better placed to answer this, no doubt. We obviously do a lot of work with the Alcohol Drugs Partnership. We do a lot of work with adult protection. There's a number of different work streams that are currently ongoing at the moment. Probably difficult for myself at this early stage to put detail into each one of them. We're just taking up post early February. So potentially Jason might be able to come in and answer a bit more for me. But again, I'll endeavour to ensure I have that answer for the next meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Councillor. It's a really excellent question, and thanks for posing it. What our P&P lead has done is created quite a comprehensive briefing note on this. I think what now would be helpful if I circulated that to the group after the meeting, and then happy to answer any questions via email, or we can pick it up in the next meeting if that is suitable.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. That'd be really, really welcome. Thank you.
Thank you both. Mark, I have a couple of questions. It might be for yourself or Jason. The unwanted fire alarm signals in the school, you mentioned a school you'd been out to quite a few times. Is it faulty equipment? Well, it can't be if it's unwanted. Or is it actually they're being deliberately set off? That's my first question. And my second one is, Councillor Dorn touched on it, the road traffic collisions. And if I caught you right at this when you were doing your presentation, the worst of these, the majority of these happen between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. Now, I think I probably know the answer to that. It's probably when the roads are busiest. But can you tell me if that is the case? Thank you.
Right, so first and foremost, if you covered the unwanted fire alarm signals, these can come from a number of different aspects. And if we look at it, they can come from aerosol use in changing rooms through to malicious activations through call points at exits, and also faults in the system. Faults do come under unwanted fire alarm signals, so these all are all covered. And we've probably seen a slight upward trend in vaping issues within certain properties as well. Vaping issues setting off alarm systems. So again, it's key work that we're looking to carry out with the management teams, not just at schools, but all types of buildings and all types of premises with fire alarm systems to try and reduce the number of calls we go to. So again, that's done through both enforcement, looking at changing detector heads to multi-criteria. So it's just not just the atoms that set off the detectors. It needs both heat and atoms to set it off. And then through our community education, our community engagement teams as well, going out and speaking to the different schools and groups to ensure that they're aware of the issues that having appliances attend where they're not able to go to other emergencies because they're at that particular school or area at the time. So again, back to the RTC question. Again, it's just purely between 3 o'clock in the afternoon and 7 o'clock at night of where the majority of casualties occur. And yes, I'm going to state that that's when the roads are busiest, and there's no other rationale than that at this time.
That's fine. Thank you very much, Mark. Any further questions? Okay, well, I have a comment. I would just like to thank you again, and some of my colleagues here will probably do it, for the community engagement work that you carry out. You know, that thing on Christmas Day, some of these people would probably be the only ones, you would be the only ones that they would see that day. So what an excellent thing that community service you're doing. Your community safety visits, all these special smoke alarms, fire alarms and things you're putting in, again, absolutely excellent. And I'm just looking at page 32, where you mentioned the Rossi Trust, the work there, and I think there's some of us, we were at something, and I think Councillor Devine's been, Councillor Bell's maybe been as well, at Forfar Fire Station quite a number of years ago, where there was a project run for young people, and they were taken, I think, for a week, and showing the dangers of fires and stuff like that, and it was just excellent. And then you've got the work placement, absolutely brilliant, and then you're obviously working in partnership with the Community Action Team, with Police Scotland, the Safe Angus. So, you know, all I can say is hats off to you, keep it up. We just couldn't do without you guys, just for our service, for keeping us safe, but also for the community work that you do. So well done. Thank you. Councillor Dorn, a comment.
Yeah, thank you. Wanted to echo what's just been said, and also just to raise how important the actions you are about preventative measures and that work in the community you do, how valuable that is. And it is really great to see that all of this activity is back again and is taking place. So thank you.
I'll just, if you allow me a second, just to reply to that, and I appreciate the thanks that you've given there, and I'll ensure that's passed on to all involved. And I could maybe just even ask yourselves to pass on the thanks to the local businesses who have on-call personnel within them that allow these people to leave at the ring of a pager, or it could be 4 or 5 hours. If you do know any businesses that have local on-call personnel within them, please pass on our thanks as an organisation for releasing them to allow to support the work that we do in the communities across Angus.
Yes, I will do. I certainly know at least one, maybe two. Thank you. Councillor Shepherd.
Thanks, convener. Yeah, just wanted to also echo about the community work. The food parcels in Arbroath, also very good to see. And just that a lot of the initiatives are ongoing. They're not just like one-off day events, they're ongoing initiatives that are ongoing, and that's a real great because it helps people sustained and over the longer term. So just highlighting that it's long-term work that you guys are doing for the community. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
And it is very good to see it in these reports, but we also see it on social media and in the press. So I certainly read about it quite regularly. So thank you very much. Anyone else for a comment? No. Okay, then we have the recommendation on page 11, and it's to recommend to us to note and comment on the attached quarterly monitoring report. I think we've done that very well. Do we agree to note?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. And thank you to our colleagues in Scottish Fire and Rescue Service for presenting your report. Okay, we'll go now to agenda item number 5A, and it's the Angus Local Policing Area Quarterly Report for the period 1st of October 2022 to 31st of December 22. And I think Chief Superintendent Davidson is going to introduce this one. Thank you.
Thank you, convener. It's good to see you all again. I am joined as usual today by Chief Inspector Leanne Blacklaw, who, as you know, is the local area commander for Angus. So today we've got 2 reports being presented to you, and I intend to look to take these in turn. The first of those is our quarterly policing report, which covers the Quarter 3 period, 1st of October to the 31st of December 2022. However, as it usually does, it focuses on the full year data up until the end of that Quarter 3 and against the comparable periods in the previous year and our 5-year average. As usual, the report provides performance update and contextual information against the local policing plan and shows linkages to the national policing objectives as well as the local community plan. As per previous quarters, I would continue to advise members that we are still seeing the residue of impact of the coronavirus pandemic on our stats and figures, with the reality that year-on-year comparisons continue to be challenging in some areas at times. I trust members have had the opportunity to read the report as normal, and we wouldn't intend to go over the full submission, but I will shortly hand over to Chief Inspector Blacklaw to draw out some of the key highlights for you, and then we'll clearly both be here to take on any questions. So as indicated, I'll cover the local policing plan paper at the end of any discussion around about our quarterly report, and over to Chief Inspector Blacklaw for that summary around about it.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'll now go over some of the highlights in our Q3 report. Violent crime continues to be a priority for us in Angus, with a particular focus on domestic violence. As you'll see, in comparison to last year, there's been a decrease in the number of recorded crimes for robbery, common assault, which includes domestic assaults, and assaults against emergency service workers. In addition to this welcome reduction, there's also an increase in the detection rates for these crimes. There's a small increase in the number of serious assaults in comparison to last year, an increase of 3 crimes. However, the detection rate has increased, and there are a number of these crimes still under inquiry. Therefore, this detection rate will hopefully increase further. There's been no particular trend or series identified regarding any of the violent crime recorded in this quarter, and our colleagues in CID continue to review all serious assaults and robberies to ensure that all investigative opportunities are maximised. We continue to have a real focus on prevention, working with our partners to carry out work in our schools and communities in order to raise awareness of the impact of violent crime and to look to. There's been a reduction in the number of vandalisms that have been recorded in comparison to last year and the 5-year average. In anticipation of with antisocial behaviour in our communities, we're continuing to work with our partners, focusing on prevention and early intervention. Moving on to acquisitive crime, there's been a welcome decrease in the number of reports regarding housebreaking to dwellings and motor vehicle crime in comparison to last year, with an increase in types. The number of frauds recorded unfortunately continue to rise in comparison to last year and the 5-year average, which is in keeping with the divisional and the national picture. Although these inquiries are particularly challenging and complex, there's an increase in the detection rate for these crimes. Continue to focus on prevention and awareness messaging, ensuring this is shared with our communities to prevent these crimes, whilst carrying out the protracted investigation of those which have been reported. Moving on to road safety, tragically, there was 1 road traffic fatality in Angus during this reporting period. The circumstances of this have been reported to the for consideration. There's been a decrease in the number of people who have been reported for speeding and drug driving offences during this reporting period in comparison to last year. And this reporting period saw the National Festive Driving Campaign, which ran for the whole month of December and into early January. And our local officers, along with our road policing colleagues, were involved in this. Moving on to public protection, there's an increase in the number in comparison to last year. Many of these offences, as I've previously highlighted, have occurred out with the reporting period and as such are classed as non-recent in nature, which means that the offence prior to the crime being reported to us. In a number of cases, multiple crimes have been recorded in respect of 1 individual victim following a disclosure of multiple time. In the majority of these reports, the person reporting the crime and the offender were either in a domestic relationship or known to each other at the time of the offence. Our local and specialist officers take time to speak to the victims of domestic and sexual crime and support them along with our partners to have the confidence to report these offences. Moving on to the key activity section, there have been 22 incidents recorded at the reporting period with supports offered to these individuals. There have been 1,274 vulnerable person reports submitted by officers in Angus in relating to adult concern reports, child concern reports, domestic abuse concerns, hate crime and youth offending. In this reporting quarter, officers in Angus have dealt with 48 missing person inquiries, and our local community officers continue to carry out community engagement work with numerous visits to schools and community events taking place. And that's me for a summary of this. Questions, we'll gladly take them. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Leanne. Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Sorry, I put my hand up far too early there.
That's all
But
right.
decided just to leave it there. Thank you. And I really do appreciate the focus that you're having on domestic abuse, sexual assault, and rape. And those figures in that report are really quite distressing. And given that yesterday was International Women's Day, I would be remiss not to tie these two stats up. I wondered if it would be helpful, without giving you too much extra work, to separate the non-recent stats out, because I know over considerable period of time, when we've seen increases in that, and it's about people building up their confidence to come forward to report crime, but to give us a kind of indication of the proportion that are non-recent, because seeing that in the round, sort of up over 50% is really quite concerning. But it's about trying to get a picture of, I think it takes women something around 13 domestic abuse incidents before she'll report it to the police, something like that, just so we can get a better picture of the reporting in Angus, if that's possible. And I know there's a historic team, looking at these incidents. So it's really just about getting a more rounded picture of it, because the bare stats on that page don't really tell the full story. And I'd appreciate any feedback you could give me on that just now, Leanne. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. We certainly will be able to know the date range of offence for clearly whether it be domestic or sexual crime, and that certainly is information, as you would expect, that we will be able to provide. What might be challenging, just in terms of when data is released on the quarterly reporting basis, as to whether we can bring it into the committee forum in terms of this sort of formal space. But if you leave it with me, what we can do is perhaps take an action just to give you a sense in a separate off-table report, if that helps, just to give you a flavour of where that's at, and we can get that shared in with members. But I think just by the nature of when and how statistics come out, it might be challenging to do on that sort of routine reporting basis to give that separation. I hope that helps answer that, and I would echo fully and support fully your comments in terms of our recognition in this space, and we really do continue to try hard to encourage confidence in reporting, and I would reassert assurances I've given previously around about the significant effort that police put into this space.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Doran, question?
Yeah, thank you. I had just a couple of things. The first one is, I wondered if you could comment a little bit more on the increase in shoplifting that's been noted, and perhaps not so surprising that has taken place given the current climate, and just wondered if there's any particular kind of trends within that could be shared in terms of kind of items or locations. But my other questions were related to the stats. I'd like to know from the police as well what is included in the non-fatal road traffic incidents and how those stats are brought together. That would be great, and fine if you want to follow up on that afterwards. And the last one was just on reporting on non-fatal overdose, and whether or not that number can be included along with previous stats, because it's quite difficult for us to assess that, as it's just a standalone number of what's happened in this quarter, so that we can see if there's any trends there. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Doran. I'll maybe take the latter 2 points that you've offered in there first, around about the road traffic stats and the non-fatal bit, and then I'll let Leanne come in around about the local shoplifting matters. So, in terms of the injuries, the road traffic injuries, essentially reportable road traffic accidents come into the police generally where any injury occurs or where there is otherwise some debate around about a collision or accident of other kinds, and that might include things like a person that refuses to provide insurance details or otherwise. But clearly there are a lot of road traffic incidents and injuries that may not get reported into the police as well, that may get reported only to the ambulance service, may get reported only to the fire service. So that's why you sometimes might see some variations between statistics between fire, ambulance and police, because we don't necessarily all attend the same accidents. Hope that helps answer that part. In terms of the injury classifications, then generally what I don't have the exacting definition, but from recollection, and it would probably be the same response that fire service would give as well, is that anything that is either a break, it requires a permanent, or has an element of, say, permanent disfigurement, or has a substantial hospitalisation or treatment period, would fall into the category of a serious injury. There is a specific definition that is around that, and therefore, in contrast to that, anything that would be, a strain, a whiplash, a minor cut, abrasion, or otherwise would then fall into a minor traffic injury statistic. So serious tends to be as serious suggests, which is something that is more potentially life-changing, I suppose, or certainly for an interim period, life-changing for an individual. Hope that helps with that. In terms of the non-fatal overdose, then certainly we do have clearly data over quite a lengthy period of time now. Really grateful for the work of multi-agency partners and the support that we're able to give where we have circumstances of somebody that finds themselves in a non-fatal overdose situation. So we do have those statistics. We'll take that away off table. We'll go and have a look at that and see what we can do for the next time round. And I'll just let Leanne come in on the shoplifting bit. Hope that's helped.
Thank you, Councillor, for your good questions there. Yeah, it's absolutely something that we're aware of and anticipated in terms of the cost of living crisis and rise to shopliftings. At this time, I don't have information to confirm that that is the case, or that people are committing these crimes for that purpose, or because they're struggling more. However, it is something that we keep in mind, and if there is anything to suggest any additional vulnerability to those who are committing these offences, then we submit the vulnerable persons reports that I talked about, or we'll have that engagement with partners, whether it's to try and get food parcels, etc., whatever that need may be. So if that may be a reason behind some of the offending, and if that was the case, we would obviously be dealing with it as a criminal matter, but highlighting it appropriately with partners and agencies who need to. In terms of, there are a number of repeat offenders who will make up a significant amount of the offences that we see, and focus on locally in terms of ensuring that these people are dealt with robustly and quickly as possible, and thereafter reported to the court. And we also have a lot of work ongoing and continue to with repeat locations, particularly preventative advice given to shopkeepers in terms of where their products are, or just basic sort of security advice. So that's something we're very involved in locally as well.
Okay, thank you, and thanks for explaining that kind of the approach to kind of joined up working as well in reporting that. I did have a kind of particular interest in if it's certain items as well that are going, but that would be good to know for the future, because I know elsewhere in the UK there's been reports around things like access to baby formula and things like that. So if there anything is coming out around that in the future, it'd be good to know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Devine.
The convener, mine's a comment. I thought we were about finished questions, but maybe Councillor Gregg's got one.
Greg, is yours a comment or a question?
It's a question, convener.
Okay, on you go. That's fine, no problem.
Great, thank you. I'm referencing page 62 of the Combined Papers report with the drinks and drug driving. Two kind of questions within that. So when a driver is stopped on suspicion of driving under an influence of either drugs or alcohol, are they if someone is stopped for suspicion of drink driving and they're then breathalyzed, are they also given a drugs wipe at the same time, or is it only on suspicion of? Similar to the other way around, if someone's stopped on suspicion of driving through drugs, are they also breathalyzed at the same time? So do both of those go hand in hand? Also, it's good to see that the report breaks down and separates those that have been stopped and provided a positive breath sample, similarly with the drugs wipe. But is it possible to also in a report see that, so how many drivers have been stopped and they've provided at the same time a positive breath sample and a positive drugs wipe together on the same occasion?
Thanks, Councillor Gregg. So in terms of the drink and drug driving, so generally a police officer needs to have a reason to stop a vehicle, so reasonable cause to suspect, or other legislative means in relation to moving forward with breathalyzer or drug procedures. So, for example, if a car is involved in a road accident, whether there's a suspicion that somebody's under the influence or not, then a test would take place. So I think it's first important to know that there's different categorizations of when a breath test or a drug procedure would take place. Regardless, the primary approach is generally around about a breath test, but clearly there are occasions where the suspicion is that there might not be any smell of alcohol on approach to a vehicle, but the demeanour, behaviour of the driving, and then the demeanour and behaviour of the driver gives cause or rises cause for concern in relation to drug procedures. So normally, it would be that the breath test is the primary course of action taken. Sometimes if there continues to be a suspicion, that might then move to a drug test. Where there is generally a lead off with a drug test, it would normally not follow that there's a breath test. And that's because generally if you're moving straight into a drug test, it's because you're not sensing through suspicion or otherwise the sort of the presence of alcohol, if that makes sense at all. In terms of separating those figures out, I'm not 100% sure. That would be a question I would probably need to pose into my roads traffic expertise just to find out exactly what we could do in that area for you. But I'm sure that's something we can take away and have a look at.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go to comments now. Councillor Devine.
Thank you, Convener. It's on page 58. I'm very pleased to see the new driver scheme, which looks like a worthy successor to the Safe Drive Stay Alive that we used to have in schools. I think we're more aware now of the fact that up to the age of 25, young people don't have a clear sense of consequence. So I'm hoping that this can be highlighted to them. I'm also delighted to read about the Rider Refinement North and the positive feedback that you're getting from that. We've often discussed the vulnerability of motorcyclists in this committee, and this is obviously becoming very popular, but also hopefully it will save lives. So thank you for these things. I'm very pleased indeed to see them.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Devine. Councillor Proctor.
Thank you, Convener. Problem getting my silence off. Yeah, I just want to thank the police officers for this excellent and full report. Pardon me. And I'd also like to thank the insurances given at the sort of meeting that we had before this, the sort of meet up with our police officers. That they're actually going to look into comments that have been made by councillors such as myself, regarding community councillors, attendance at community councils, speeding and other sort of traffic measures in Kirriemuir and in Newtell. And I think this sort of proactive approach that we're getting back from Police Scotland is really welcome and to be commended for that. I thank them.
Thank you very much, Councillor Proctor. And I would just like to echo what my two colleagues, Councillor Devine and Councillor Proctor, have just said. Again, Leanne and Phil, I shouldn't be calling you that, you're Chief Inspector and Chief Superintendent, but we'll do that today. Just if you take it back, the thanks from this committee, because there's excellent community work going in there. Councillor Devine mentioned at least two of the projects that you've got going, but there are a lot more than that in this report. So again, on behalf of this committee, if you just take that thanks back to your colleagues, because you're doing an excellent service, keeping us all safe, but also working with partners in the community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Now, members, if there's no further comments, the recommendation is there, and we think we've scrutinised this well, like we did the fire service one. So we're asked to note this report. Is this report noted?
Noted.
Thank you very much. And now it's 5B, the Angus Local Policing Plan.
Yeah, thanks, Convener, and thanks for those comments there before. And it can be Phil and Leanne for the purposes of this meeting, no problem at all. Also grateful for the comments there about the policing report, but it would be remiss of me in response to that to not acknowledge the really valuable support we get from multi-agency partners across Angus, because policing is not achieved in isolation. It's achieved with our collaborative partners and with elected members and clearly with the public. So really grateful for the comments. In terms of the second report, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce what is now the final version of the Angus Local Police Plan for 2023 to 2026. This follows public and stakeholder consultation, which was open from 3rd of November to the 12th of February this year. Members will recall that I introduced a draft version at the Q2 reporting period, and I'm grateful for the consultation feedback that we received from some members in respect to that. The local policing plan explains how we will deliver our policing priorities in Angus over the next, with these activities in turn contributing to the broader Police Scotland organisational objectives and in support of the Angus Community Plan. And that is in much the same vein as you see our reporting that has been undertaken over the past 3 years against the existing policing plans. So developing the next 3 years plan, it's offered and it will continue to offer the opportunity to work together with our partners and with our communities to understand the priorities and to adjust and to improve what we do to keep people safe. The plan, it has been shaped by a range of views, but by data as well, by an assessment of that data, and includes the public feedback. And members will hopefully recall that during the consultation period and before the consultation period, that our local policing teams were out and about across Angus, engaging with communities over several months as we gathered in that vital public feedback on what they saw services to be, and including what we were able to obtain through the Your Police survey, of which we received clearly quite a high number of responses. So I'm really grateful formally for all the views that have been obtained in shaping this. All of that data assessment, public, partner, stakeholder and elected member views have informed this final plan that's here today. It follows extensive engagement and development, and essentially I'm asking at this final version that you're getting to see for members to endorse the plan for adoption in Angus for the next 3 years, and against which we will clearly then be reporting for the next 3 years. So I'll open up to any questions that members may have, but trust you've now seen it a number of times.
Thank you very much, Phil. Councillor Bell.
Thank you very much. And yes, I totally appreciate the amount of work and engagement that's gone in on this. And it is, as you say, proof that multi-agency working is utterly essential across all the sectors. I'm really pleased, particularly obviously, to see the focus on gender-based violence and abuse in there, and also around your role in supporting people experiencing mental health challenges. And given that we're at what I regard as a critical juncture in our evolution of our mental health services across Tayside, I wondered if there was anything that you could give us beyond the content of the plan around what you see as a top priority for us planning those community mental health services from your perspective as you support people, particularly in crisis, experiencing suicidal ideation and sort of real risk to life. What would you find helpful for us to make sure that we do as we develop those services? I hope I have a pretty good idea, but it would be really good to get that discussion in this forum. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. I guess firstly that added inclusion of those elements that you speak of do reflect the sort of the feedback we've clearly had. I think the sense of reporting going forward will be that you'll get a slight change in terms of how we report into scrutiny, where there's a bit more thematic look across the next 3 years in a slightly different way, which I think is helpful and will allow perhaps that bit more of a detailed dive into matters as we go forward, which I'm sure will be welcome to everybody. In terms of mental health services, I think all members will appreciate that mental health is an extremely complex area, and there are many factors. There are many services that are involved in the lives of people in crisis. I think it's well versed in terms of the various reports that have been ongoing in relation to mental health services across Tayside, and there has been a concerted and significant effort across the 3 local authorities, with police, with fire, with other partners, and with NHS Tayside towards making improvements. So the last of those recent sort of works together involved an independent assurance and oversight group work, which was really helpful, and that's informed further reporting into that space. That is leading to the development of a multi-agency focused action and improvement plan, which is broad and complex, and I could talk for probably most of the afternoon if needs be in respect to some of the activities within it. But to say it to a high level, and as I guess as I see it, is we need to see a greater shift ultimately from the extent of clinical care into prevention and community-based approaches is the reality. And I think that's the aim that we're all striving for, to try and increase capacity in our areas and in our communities, so that we can address emergent mental health issues and early stage crisis at the earliest opportunity, with a view to then that prevents escalation and issues at clearly the more severe end, which I'm sure is appreciated and understood by all. I hope that answers the question, Councillor Bell.
Okay, Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. Comments? Well, I'd just like to again thank your service, Phil and Leanne, because I think this is an excellent report. It's very detailed. You've obviously done huge consultation, direct contact with victims of crime, consultation responses to your own police survey, consultation with local elected members and community representatives, engagement with partners and local businesses, and direct consultation with members of the public. I don't think you could get any more, how could you say, what's the word I'm looking for, thorough than that. You've covered absolutely everything. So well done. Councillor Dorn.
Thank you. I don't think my raised hand was working when you asked for comments. It took me a few clicks to raise it. So sorry about coming in slightly late on that. Just wanted to, again, there's been some really great engagement that's gone on to create this report. Really pleased to see that the continued promotion of naloxone by members of the public and extending to local officers in Angus. And just a reminder that everyone can take up that training and carry naloxone, because I'm a big supporter of that as well. And so, yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Comments? No. Okay, we've just got the one recommendation that is this report. Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Now, police and fire, you're not getting away yet because we've got 2 more to go. Good afternoon, Gail. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Good to see you. Right, we'll just go to agenda item number 6. And it's the joint inspection of adult support and protection in Angus. It's a report by our chief executive. But I think, is it yourself, Gail, that's going to speak to? Yes, okay.
Yes.
On you go. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, convener. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm able to present this report to you this afternoon. This report summarises the outcome of the joint inspection of the multi-agency arrangements that are in place to support and protect the population in Angus. This inspection took place back in September 22 and it lasted until January 23. The inspection is actually requested by the Scottish Government and it's led by the Care Inspectorate on behalf of Healthcare Improvement Scotland and His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary in Scotland as well. This inspection is one of 26 that have currently been completed so far and required to be completed by 2023. The joint inspection, as I said, took place in Angus and involved 5 pieces of scrutiny work. And please don't underestimate the intensity of this work that involved all our agencies. What it included was looking at the analysis of supporting documentary evidence and providing a position statement on behalf of the multi-agency team on where we were with adult support and protection. Thereafter, it involved completion of a staff survey, and I'm delighted to say we had 548 staff from Angus completed that survey. That is above the national average for a response rate. So I'm delighted with that response. This also involved looking at records of 40 individuals who were considered at risk of harm but actually didn't progress beyond that adult support and protection inquiry. And then alongside that, it involved another 50 records of adults at risk of harm where their adult protection journey did progress beyond that initial investigation stage. Then we had staff focus groups that inspectors carried out, and there were 2 in Angus, and they met with 20 members, including myself and Phil. Phil's still on the call. We were interviewed as well as the Chief Executive, Margaret Williamson. Summary of the findings. I make no apologies. I've included them in the summary in the report today. But the summary was in line with 2 quality indicators, which were how good are our key adult support and protection processes and how good is our leadership for adult support and protection. And the performance is graded using 3 indicators, which are very effective, or have got weaknesses. And I'm delighted to say, in relation to Angus, how good were the partnership's key processes for adult support and protection. We got very effective. Now we're one of only 2 partnerships out of the 22 I think that have been completed so far that have got that grade. And then the second one, how good was this partnership's strategic leadership for adult support and protection? We got effective for that. I've highlighted the strengths in your report, and I've also highlighted the areas that are identified for improvement. The improvement plan is in development, And indeed, a number of these areas are already underway and the improvements have been progressed. The next stage is this improvement plan will be taken to our Adult Support and Protection Committee, and thereafter it will be submitted to the Care Inspectorate on the 15th of March, where the Care Inspectorate will review the plan, and I've no doubt you'll come back with any comments. I think the rest of the information is in there, Convener, but on behalf of everybody that's been involved with the multi-agency inspection, I would like to thank everybody in our multi-agency teams for their support with this, and it's a very positive report. Thank you.
It certainly is a very positive report. I mentioned it just before the start of the last, it had just come out that day, I think, Gail, and I mentioned it just at the start of the last committee meeting. Very positive. Councillor Devine, a question.
Yes, but first of all, I would love to give you congratulations, Gail, and your whole team, because I seem to remember a kind of social work inspection going on several years ago, and I know it was terribly onerous. It was really, really hard on staff. So this is a great report. The only thing I want to pick up on, and I have to, is 4.4 chronologies. Now, I remember that coming up the last time as well, and it's good to see that there's been improvement, but what do you put this down to? Is it a change of staff or what? And how do you think you can improve it?
Councillor Devine, like myself, as you know, I've been involved in previous inspections here as well, and I think everybody, and I think I do have a comparison that I can share with you of the reports from the other agencies, because from the other boards, because I've looked to see if anybody in the country is getting this right. You know, there are people that use electronic chronology templates for developing their chronologies. There are others that use different approaches. They use their risk assessments, their risk management processes, and I don't think anybody is getting this right. It really is a struggle. It is a struggle. What we're aiming to do in Tayside, well, in Tayside, because it is a Tayside-wide problem as well. I don't think any of the three partnerships have got this right. But what we're looking at is we're looking to try and measure it through regular single agency and through multi-agency self-evaluation and continuous activities to see if any of our teams can get this right in any way. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Chronologies have been raised everywhere. We're waiting on somebody that gets it right, the perfect area, and we can share this across the country.
Well, it might be you, Gail.
That'll be a template for you, Gail, and it might be you that does that.
Gosh, you never know, because we're working hard on it. The team have got a deadline in place to try and look at this. So yeah, I'll let you know if we achieve success.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, and like Lynn, I'm really proud of the team that's been part of delivering this report. I do know how challenging the workload is and don't want to minimise that at all. And I want to praise them for their willingness to take learning on board. I think that's a hugely important skill to have, and we have it in buckets in Angus actually. But a couple of wee questions, Gail. What sort of time scale coming back to this committee? And also 4.4, if I go back to that, the last bullet point, I would suggest the strategic service user engagement work within our mental health developments would be an absolutely fantastic case study in there to demonstrate deepening engagement. I think we've been on a really good journey in the Angus Health and Social Care Partnership in terms of engaging with people, and I think using this current piece of work, but with this in mind, would be a really powerful example of where we're using all that expertise to further deepen that engagement and involvement work. Thanks.
When I can come back to you, I can come with the report because it will have been submitted to the Care Inspectorate on the 15th of March. My question to the committee is, do you want the whole report or would you like an exception report? And in response to your second question, you're absolutely right. I've just been in a meeting this morning about the mental health improvement plan that Chief Superintendent Davidson was talking about earlier. And I think I've got the lead responsibility across Tayside for that strategic service user engagement. The timescale that we've given ourselves in Angus is August 2023. And our intention is to have an actual event, ideally late in the springtime, to actually progress that, Councillor Bell, and you're very welcome to attend.
Okay, Councillor Speed.
Thanks, Convener. Hi, Gail. It was just in relation to Appendix 1, and there's 95% of episodes were progressed timelessly by the partnership. Of those that were delayed, 50% less than 1 week and 50% more than 3 months. I just wondered if you could explain just such a difference there, and to the staff survey. There was quite a number of, quite a high percentage of people stating they didn't know in response to some of the questions, which is great that they're obviously being honest with their answers. But I just wondered what will be done then to help inform and develop them in those areas that they're not maybe as sure on.
The one first, the staff survey, you're absolutely right. We've taken note of that, and that will be included in the work taken forward. I don't know the specifics around that at this stage, but I know that they are looking at that. And actually, I will have to go and find out through your question of that other 5%. I don't have that operational detail, but I can find somebody who can.
Okay, thanks, Gail.
Okay, thank you both. Right, I don't see any questions or any comments. No, well, I've just said, as I said previously, Gail, at the start of the last meeting of this committee, this is a very, very positive report, and even some of the areas for improvement, they're not huge, are they? So, I think you and your team's done absolutely well. So well done. Members, Gail touched on what sort of report we want, so we're asked in the recommendations to note the outcome of the inspection and request a further report be brought back to a future meeting following submission of the improvement plan to the Care Inspectorate. Do we want, would we like a full report or a shorter report?
Shorter.
What's the feeling? An exception one? Okay. Gail, that's what we'll go for. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Would you like that at your next meeting, convener?
If you're able to provide it by that time, but if not, you just liaise with Karen and she'll keep you right when for the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
No bother, thank you. And agenda item number 7 is the Angus Adult Protection Committee biannual report. And Gail, this is you again, I think.
Yes, I'll introduce the report. I'm hoping you and Davidson, you and West, sorry, I'm thinking about Chief Superintendent Davidson. I'm hoping you and West is also in the committee, but I can't
Yes,
see
he is.
him.
He's here. He is here.
That's good. Thank you very much. I'll introduce the report. As I've said again, a lot of information I do provide in the front page of the report. But this report is to introduce the Adult Protection Committee biannual report for 2020-2022, which, as you're aware, committee is a statutory responsibility. Our Angus committee has been chaired very ably by Ewan West, our independent chair, for a number of years, and I'm sure Ewan will confirm how many, but I'm sure it's over 7. A number of the council members are members of the Adult Protection Committee, which actually reflects the multifaceted nature of the committee and also confirms that whole system responsibility here. In the report, it highlights a lot of information for that period, 2020 to March 2022, and it actually highlights the work that's been undertaken in Angus and across the whole partnership. What I would like to remind members of the committee that throughout this period, we did have that COVID-19 pandemic. So I think it's actually remarkable that we've achieved the information that we have achieved. This is an extensive report, and throughout the report, it highlights the data and what our data tells us. So again, I'll leave the committee members to ask specific questions. In section 4, we have highlighted the current position, and I don't want to read out all of these points to you all. I think I'll leave it there. I don't know if anybody wants to ask any questions, or if you would like Ewan to add anything else. I can't see Ewan on the screen. Apologies, convener.
No, I think he's down the bottom. I think he's not on it, but his name's there, Gail. Ewan, do you want to come out? There you go.
Thank you, convener. Thank you, Gail. Yeah, I think the biennial report is the underbelly, if you like, of the inspection report that you've just discussed, convener. Everything that the inspecting team looked at was pretty much covered in the biennial report. And like yourself, convener, and the councillors, is delighted with the inspection report, which kind of summarises all of our work that we've been doing. The biennial report is set out in a bit more detail. We have submitted that to Scottish Government as well, and we await their findings on it, which are due very soon. Happy to take questions. We've identified, you'll see towards the end of the report, some of the key issues that the Adult Support and Protection Committee feel are priorities for going forward. And they kind of mirror to some extent the findings of the inspection report, which is encouraging for us. I think it was Councillor Bell mentioned earlier about service users, and we are very conscious in the committee that that's an area that we need to advance our activity on. We had noted that in our position statement for the inspection, and the work was, we did have some really good plans going forward, which were led by independent advocacy, but they were slightly curtailed by COVID. But that bus is now back on the road, and we're moving forward with that. But certainly take on your point, Councillor Bell, that you made earlier about having a look at the mental health strategic service and user engagement, because any new or better idea than we've had so far is certainly something to be encompassed. So we'll certainly have a look at that going forward at committee. So yeah, as always, there is room for improvement across different aspects of adult support and protection work. The number of referrals, although slightly down in the last year, they're still at a very high level, and provides a challenge, a very significant challenge, to the multi-agency team whose job it is to look at the referrals and deal with them, and ultimately improve the lives of the vulnerable adults who are being referred to us. Because, you know, we can write all these reports and they're all very good, but the bottom line with all of this for me is that we need to improve the lives and prospects of those who have got a number of vulnerabilities for different reasons. And it's the outcomes for those service users that are very, very important going forward. And that is what we strive ultimately to achieve, is to improve their lives. But I'll leave that convener, and happy to take any questions on this, or indeed the inspection report that was mentioned earlier, because the two do complement each other.
Absolutely, Ewan. Thank you very much indeed. We'll go to questions, and Councillor Devines first. Thank you.
Thanks, convener. Thank you, Ewan and Gail. This always gives us a really clear idea of what's going on and how challenging it is. And of course, over the last few years, it's been even more challenging than ever. So really commend all the work that goes on. I'm just really looking at page 153, and it is the referrals that you were talking about. I just wanted a bit of clarification on this table. There's carer and care at home, and I just wondered what the difference is there. And in health primary, does this include social prescribers? Very short questions.
Gail, I'll maybe let you take that one about the health.
Yes, I'll do that. Care at home and carer could be anybody that's in the home. So it could be a private provider, Councillor Devine, but actually I don't think we've received any referrals from them. So it's actually been a carer, someone that's looking after the person, but you know, the care at home would be a provider or someone perhaps from Care About Angus. So that was the purpose of that category. And the health primary is actually, it could be the district nurse or a health visitor or a specialist nurse or another individual, but not the GP. The GPs have a separate line in there.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah.
Okay. Not too clear about the carer and the care at home, but I did see there was nothing from care at home. So no. I just didn't know if that was even required, because if it was a carer, it could be a carer who's an unpaid carer, but it could also be a care at home person. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Perhaps the committee can look at the need. I can see that for the last 4 years, that category hasn't been required, but it was probably set out, you know, thinking if someone doesn't think they're a carer, you know, that they're, as you say, a social prescriber, for example. We've left that category in, but we can certainly review that.
Could I maybe just come in on that one, convener?
Of course you can.
Councillor Devine, I think we're in the process at the moment of working with all the other areas and Scottish Government to provide a national data set, which is about to, I think, be finalised next month. So the next set of statistics that you receive in terms of these, you know, referrals, I think they'll be refined down, and that's one example of where I think there's a bit of duplication. So I think this will become a wee bit historical, and hopefully the national data set, for which there's been a very significant amount of work going into getting that right, I think should provide a bit more clarity around some of these figures. So we're probably dealing with a wee bit of historical stuff here, and hopefully the new data set will improve upon that, Councillor.
That's great, thank you.
Okay, thank you, all three of you. Good questions. Councillor Dorn.
Yep, thank you, everyone. I just wanted to see if you could comment a little bit more on one of the development areas, which is that 94% of case conferences were not attended by all the relevant health professionals who were invited. And just adding a little bit more to the background to that and going forward. I appreciate this is a difficult issue relating to staffing pressures across various different organisations, but it'd be helpful if you could just expand on that area a little bit. Thank you.
I think where we've made a fair bit of improvement upon that, Councillor Dorn, since this report was produced. Gail's team and the NHS side have now got specific adult protection staff, and it's their job to go along to all of these case conferences, or the vast majority. I would find it difficult to think of many that they shouldn't go to, put it that way. So there is a dedicated resource now from NHS to attend case conferences, whereas before it was a bit more sporadic and there wasn't one particular person who would attend. Now it's the job of the person who is attending now to link in with all of her colleagues, his or her colleagues across the NHS arena, gather all the relevant information and take it to case conference. So it's coming from one source for NHS, and hopefully that makes it a bit more focused. And so I would hope by the next time we report, Councillor, that those figures will be 100% attendance when they need to be there. Gail, I think that's fair to say what I've just commented on.
That's correct. Public Protection Executive Group yesterday, so your comment's quite correct.
Yeah, thank you both. That's good to hear that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bell?
Actually, Councillor Doran's probably taken my question, but if I can come in on the back of that, I have been party to some conversations at boards and NHS Tayside around a recognition that capacity issue is being addressed by the appropriate people, so that hopefully that gives you a bit of triangulation there, Heather. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Speed?
Thanks, convener. Yeah, I had a few questions. So the previous report highlights the need for timely identification of trends or issues. And I just wondered what the relationship between the increase in older people adult protection referrals and the significant hours of unmet health and social care need. And is there a figure that can be attributed to this? And also, is there a link between the increase in referrals within the younger age group and transition from children to adult services? And my third question, similar to around what Councillor Dornan touched on in terms of the lack of representation at meetings. And I just wondered how this will be kind of balanced with increasing professional attendance as well as maximising service users and carers participation. I note within the report that it highlights that some people were digitally excluded when they perhaps weren't able to access the appropriate IT equipment to take part. It also shows an increase within, for example, the learning disability group as well, who often experience greater barriers to digital participation, or perhaps just isn't the best method. And alongside, I guess, balancing the risk as well when physical and emotional abuse cases have increased and face-to-face participation may be imperative for professionals who are assessing for harm. So just how those competing kind of factors and needs will be monitored and measured and assessed as we go forward.
Can I suggest that we take these questions back to the operational staff? I don't have a lot of that detail as quite operational, Lois, so I can take that back. I don't have the detail for the transition. You know, it's kind of a separate question to what they've measured in the report, but I could ask somebody to do that piece of work for you. The IT, again, the lack of access, I'm not quite sure about that detail, so I would prefer to take these questions separately, convener, if that's okay, if Lois can put them to me. And
yes, if Councillor Speed's okay with that, Gail, that Councillor Speed?
Yeah, that's fine. I wonder if that perhaps does then tie in with that area for improvement on the previous report, whereas that you'll hopefully be able to drill down into any trends and issues a bit more and be able to bring that back to a future meeting. But happy to receive the responses out with this meeting for this time.
Ewan, can I pass that bit back to you?
Yeah, I agree with what you said, Gil. We just need to drill down a wee bit more. But just to give you a wee bit of reassurance, Councillor Speed, in relation to those who couldn't attend meetings or conferences through the digital process, I know that the operational staff did everything they could to offer an alternative to try where their voice was absolutely imperative. And again, it's not always helpful where we ask an individual to attend a meeting digitally, because the person who may be impacting on them might be staying in the same household. So it's not easy then for that individual to relay their concerns if there's someone else around who may have an impact on what they're saying. So again, we try our best in those circumstances, because we would know that information, or the operational guys would know that, to try and offer some alternatives. So it is, I can assure you, looked at by that support and protection team when they're arranging these meetings, but we'll get you a bit more detail on that. But to your point about transitions, and again, we'll get some more information, but I think you're absolutely right. I think in that transitional age group of 16 to 18, there are some challenging individual cases there. They're very complex, often, these cases, as Gail will agree. And the committee, the Interpretation Committee, has a transitions group now set up to specifically look at some of those issues. And I'm expecting a report from them at our meeting next week to see what trends and issues they're finding, but more importantly, what are the solutions to those. So it's definitely a very good point that you make, and we're on it. We've not got it resolved yet, but it's something that we need to look at very carefully, Councillor.
Okay, thank you.
I see Miss Lindsay's got her hand up. Catherine, do you want to comment on this before we go to Councillor Proctor?
Thank you very much, Convener. It was just really on the matter of whether or not the increase noted in relation to those in the 16 to 20 age bracket might be in relation to issues and challenges around transition. And what I would say is, as the Director of Children, Families and Justice, and obviously with my Chief Social Officer hat on, I also am interested in and have oversight in relation to some adult protection matters. It's not so much that transition issues are causing that increase, Councillor Speed. More, I would say, what we're seeing operationally is a steady increase in the number of children and young people in that sort of age bracket who are presenting in acute distress. Mental ill health related distress, but not necessarily with diagnosable mental illnesses that would support the need for detention. There are a fairly small, as you can see, number of young people who we have significant concerns about, but for whom the child protection system would not offer the legal protections that might be afforded to those individuals in their category as adults. So the legislation in this area is quite complex and intertwined, and sometimes we have to make decisions about which of the protecting people systems might best offer support for that particular individual, and more of those particular individuals have benefited from the consideration of adult protection related legal measures, which is why you see them in these particular statistics. That's not to say that they don't also retain the ongoing support of social workers and other support staff who are located in children's social work services. So this is not an issue about them being passed at that point solely into adult services. There is this kind of very, as I said earlier, murky kind of age range where young people will straddle multiple services in order to make sure we can wrap the best support that we can around them. I hope that helps to clarify a little, but we are definitely seeing a significant upturn in relation to these sorts of complex needs in that younger age range. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, Convener.
Okay, Councillor Speed. Do you want to come
thanks,
back?
Thanks, Catherine. That's helpful. And just to kind of finish off on the points that Ewan made, Convener, if I may, it was just to be clear that, of course, kind of person-centred planning and getting the right methods of the, how the meeting's held is really important. And I guess I was just looking for reassurances that if it's digital, there'll be support there, but there may be times where actually that's just not the best method for staff or the person, and just that if we've got challenges of professionals being able to attend, that there'd be efforts made to ensure that if it is in person, that those there will be that drive to ensure that happens for the person. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Proctor.
I don't think my question will take that long, really, for you. And are there any military veterans, swept up our client secret system. There are quite a few, adult veterans who could actually do with assistance and help which we provide. There are numerous agencies there, for example, like Veterans First Point, SAFA, and various others, which are available. And do you manage to link up with any of them if required, along with the other people that you collaborate with?
Thanks, Councillor. In terms of specific cases, it's not something that I would have the information for because I don't see the operational cases going through my desk. That'd be a matter for Gail's staff, and Gail could maybe provide that information. In terms of linking in with any other agency, absolutely we would, and that would be down to whoever was holding the case or at case conference. If the individual was already engaged with a veterans association or some other support group, then they would be invited to provide any other information and support that would help that person's case, councillor. So definitely we would do that if it was relevant. And Gail could maybe speak to the operational team about the specifics for you, councillor, if that was helpful.
Yes, Councillor Proctor, I can do that if that's relevant, but I do know that Sarah Dickey, who's our current Director of Nursing in the community, you're nodding, you're obviously familiar with the work that Sarah's doing, and also alongside Scott Jameson, who supports our Scott's a GP and recently appointed as our support to Dr. Clement, an Associate Medical Director. He will lead that, so I certainly can ask them that.
Thanks very much for that, Gail, and you. And I know both people very well, and I just offer that, as a veterans champion, that I have got a sort of toehold in many of the organisations, Chairman of SAFA, for example, and only too happy to help. And I'd just like to finish by saying thanks for the excellent report, very full and detailed. I'd just like to thank everybody, Gail, you, and everybody else who's involved with working in. It's a very worthwhile and essential part of our community, and for that I'd say thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm the same, Gail, and you, and I'll just go straight to comments now. I don't think there's any further questions. Obviously, when you read the bullet points at 4.1 to 4.7, your current position, your workload is just increasing all the time. And it just shows you the vulnerability of some people and the support and help that they need and they're getting from this partnership committee. So again, I would just say it's an excellent report. Well done. Thank you. Has anybody else got any comments? No. Okay, then this will go to council as well on next week. I think it's the 16th. But we are asked at recommendation 1.1 and 1.2 to scrutinise and comment of the comments of the Angus Adult Protection Committee. I think we've done that very well, and consider the key trends and areas for development emerging from the report. Is this report agreed? Agreed. Okay, thank you. And I have remembered at this time to say, and that would be Ewan and Gail, not that I'm trying to throw you out at all, and our colleagues from the police and fire services, because I always forget, and Mr. Armstrong's usually got to remind me that if you wish to stay in the meeting, you may, but I know you're all busy people, and if you also wish to leave, that's okay as well. And thank you all for your contribution and for all that your teams do. It's really appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you.
So agenda item number 8 is the internal audit activity update. Mrs. Wiley, thank you very much. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, thank you. This is just the normal progress report. It's got the update on the whole of the plan for 22-23, a little bit of information about the few items that were still outstanding from the previous plan, and we're reporting today on one audit that's been completed since the last time I brought this report to you, and that's around comfort funds. That audit information starts on page 197. And this audit was looking at the comfort funds within the council establishments to provide assurance that that there are appropriate controls in place to ensure effective management of these funds. The comfort funds are funds that are raised on behalf of establishments, and they don't belong to or are not due to be accounted for by Angus Council itself, but it is Angus Council staff generally who are administering these funds that are sitting for the benefit of residents and service users, and it's to pay for things that would not normally be paid for from the council's funds for these establishments. So at the top of page 99, I think it is, yeah. Sorry, I'm going to have to put this on the other screen. It's not moving fast enough, but it just means I can't look at the camera. Sorry. So bottom of page 198, we've got substantial assurance for this audit, and at the top of page 199, you can see the 5 areas that we were looking at here. One was adequacy of the guidance that was available. We looked at whether that guidance was being followed, that all income and expenditure was being adequately recorded and authorised. Audited annual accounts were available to the public for each individual fund, which is required by our financial regulations, and also that appropriate procedures were in place for the return of funds for accommodation that had closed. Now, you'll see on that same page that there are 10 recommendations for this, and that would normally not go with a report that had a substantial overall conclusion. But what you need to bear in mind is that we visited 7, or we audited 7 different funds here, and therefore if we identified an issue in one fund that needed a recommendation, it didn't necessarily mean that that area that we were auditing overall was less than a substantial assurance because the other funds were operating okay. We identified some good practice in terms of the weekly checks that are being performed by staff and the manager at the Gables in Forfar, and we also identified other audits that had been undertaken individually in a number of the places that we were looking at. In terms of the recommendations, we've got 2 level 1 priority actions here. One is just around the guidance because it dates back to 2013, and there are a few things that need to just be brought up to date in there. There'll be a register kept of all the funds which wasn't in place. The rest of the recommendations are really about making sure that the guidance is being adhered to and that bank account information is kept up to date, and that audits are undertaken for all of the funds, and just making sure that checks around monthly reconciliations, etc., are happening as regularly as they should be. There's also one recommendation in there about making updating financial regulations to take account of direct debit payments from funds. And that's really all I wanted to say about the comfort funds. The other information that's in this report is around the outstanding recommendations from reports that have been agreed previously. I don't have anything in there that I want to specifically draw attention to. I would say that I'm being reassured by officers that they are working to try and get all of the recommendations that are there and outstanding done by the dates that have been agreed, and hopefully in future we'll be reporting less. These figures in the tables here do include the 10 recommendations that have been agreed for the Comfort Fund audit. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Mrs. Wiley? Again, there's a lot of work being done here, Cathy, a lot of tables showing a lot of stuff, a lot of progress. So as you say, probably in the next few meetings we might see even less. So no, that's good. Anyone else? Comments? Okay, we have the 2 recommendations then at the top of the page. Is this report noted?
Noted.
Thank you. We'll go to number 9 now, and that's the annual internal audit plan 2023-24. And again, Mrs. Wiley, it's yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the annual plan, which we bring in March generally each year, which is a note of the work that we're hoping to be under year. The process for producing this plan has been in place for quite a long time. There's a lot of consultation with members, with officers. We're considering the risk registers, looking at the environment in which we're operating internally, but also the national environment that we're operating within, to make sure that we're considering everything that we possibly should be for audit in terms of what we call the audit universe, but also that we approach to what we're looking at. I also take into consideration the other sources of assurance that officers and indeed members have to provide assurance around the various areas that are in the audit universe, so that we can make sure that we're not duplicating work and that we're getting the maximum amount of assurance for the input that's being put in across different areas. The main areas that there's other assurance from, it's noted in the assurance mapping section here, is around external audit and other inspection agencies, but there's also quite a lot of self-evaluation, and there's been other reports on today's agenda which would bring you assurance which have got nothing whatsoever to do with the audit that's been undertaken, but which are nonetheless providing assurance for the overall picture of what is happening within the totality of the council. There's nothing particularly in the plan that I need to bring to anybody's attention today. It's just really there for your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have around that.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Wiley. Councillor Doran.
Thank you. My question isn't really related to the time that the audit team is proposed to spend on this, but it's more about the support that you need from the other officers across the council to do when these take place. I presume that it requires the part of the organisation that's being audited would need to give time towards that, and I just wondered if there's potential there for challenges, as there's maybe not as many people around as there has been in the past, or like the challenges in work, the workloads that they have there. So I just wanted to raise that and see if there was that had kind of any of that has been experienced so far, and if it's likely to maybe be an issue in the future.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yeah, that is something that we have reported on occasion in terms of finding that increasingly difficult. We are finding that at all stages of the audit, because we do advanced discussion, planning, agreeing the scope before we actually get into the field work, and then we've got a draft report that needs to be agreed in the action plan and what have you. And we are finding that people are taking longer to respond to the questions and the requests for information, providing the information for the audit, responding to the draft report, etc. We've got a team meeting actually set up in the next unit, whether there's a different way we can do some of that engagement, to see whether we might be able to speed some of those processes up and make it easier for people to engage with us. But yes, that it is something that we're aware of, and we can see that there is an impact. If you compare how quickly we were getting through things previously to now, there is a difference.
Okay, Councillor Doran.
Yeah, thank you.
No, as Mrs. Wiley said, there's nothing that she's got really any concern about here, or to bring to our attention. So, Councillor De.
Yeah, it's maybe more a comment actually, convener. It's just looking at the summary of corporate risk register, Kathy. I don't know what influence you've got here in this, but I'm looking at climate change number 10, and the risk target is only 6. I just don't kind of feel that's very realistic in the scheme of things, when lots of targets aren't being met. Yes, I just wondered if you would be able to consider that a bit low.
I think there's possibly the person who's who's responsible for that risk may be in the today and be able to answer more. But generally speaking, I think the targets that are there are where we would like to reach without necessarily being where we know we will reach. But I'm not. And I think once we do the work around risk appetite, that will change how some of that relates in terms of where these scores are sitting. But I'm not sure if the person who's responsible for that risk is here today.
Which office is that, Mrs. Wiley?
It's
I'm sorry, I can't
Alison Smith. Apologies, Alison Smith, in terms of the CCAP and various other pieces of work. But what Cathy says is exactly right. I think the work that will be done and the target that's in there is the target that we're aiming for. So, and I think as we get into that work, it may be that we deem the target is too high and it needs to be lower. I think, Councillor Devine, that's the kind of appetite that we think is realistic for us to reach in terms of the impact and the probability of that risk materialising. To get down below 6 is possibly, beyond maybe most of our capabilities. It's a fairly stretch and ambitious target in terms of reducing the overall risk that climate change would have across the whole of the council's activity and our communities as a whole. But as Cathy said, I think once that work starts, and as we start to deliver more on the plans that are in place, we'll have a much deeper understanding as to what a realistic level is. But I think just now, 6 is probably a reasonable assessment of where we should be aiming for.
So, well, I'm just talking about, Mark, I just don't think it's possible to get to 6 in the whole scheme of things, but we'll leave it up to you to when you're looking at just the risk register generally.
Thank you both. Anything else? Any further comments? No, we've got 2 recommendations then. Is this report agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Now we'll go on agenda item number 10, reports relevant to the work of the Scrutiny Audit Committee. Mrs. Wiley, it's yourself again.
Thank you. This is a report which I usually bring 3 times a year, but this year you've not seen it, and so there's quite a lot of reports in it this time because it's catching up with itself. But it's really just to draw your attention to reports that have gone to council or to other committees which are relevant to the remit of the Scrutiny Committee. But rather than bring them all here again, I'm just drawing your attention so that you know that they're there. I also include things that have gone to the IJB contracts to their public meetings which are relevant to audit. And it's really just to give you the opportunity, if there was anything there that you felt that you wanted to know a bit more about or to have further information about, that you would be able to ask for that at this stage.
There's nothing really that sticks out, Mrs. Wiley, and you're not really concerned with anything, have you?
No, it's really just for your information to let you know that these pieces of or these reports have gone to these other places within the council. The chances are that a number of you will have seen them. Specifically, if they've gone to the council, you'll all have seen them. But different members of the Scrutiny Audit Committee will have seen some of these reports depending on which other committees they're involved with.
Okay, that's great. I understand now. Thank you very much. Councillor Bell.
Thank you very much. You're absolutely right, Cathy. Some of us are more clued up on some of those reports than other things, and I just wondered about how I know we have to report to the housing regulator, okay, and the most up-to-date information I could see on voids in housing was something like 53.5 days that properties are void. And that's something that I would like to see really shortened. So if you could even just direct me to where I might find that offline, that I would be really grateful. If that's the sort of backup information included in, and I'm looking at page 228, the top of 228, if there's other information out with committee reports where I would get a greater detail around our voids and any improvements we've made on that, I'd be very grateful. Thanks.
Okay. and I just comment that taking into consideration what's there from other, we have included a review of that in the annual plan this year, to look at how we manage that. In terms of other information, I'm not absolutely certain. I know there is information available on the Housing Regulator's website, but you've said you've already looked at that. I think maybe, I don't know if there's anyone from Housing here today, but I can certainly find out and get back to you on that.
That'd be super. No, I'm glad you're already taking that into account. That's super appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Any comments? No. Right, my screen's on the go slow now. So we've got the recommendations. Review the reports listed at Appendix 1 and determine whether any of the reports of a more detailed discussion by this committee. Well, I think it's very comprehensive, and Mrs. Wiley's not saying she's got no cause for concern, really. So do we agree this report?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. So agenda item number 11, the second last one's the detailed risk reporting to Scrutiny Audit Committee. And it's a report again by Mrs. Wiley, but I think I've got down here Mr. Armstrong's going to speak to the health and safety compliance risk, and Mr. Conroy will also be in attendance to respond to questions. Is that correct, Mrs. Maley?
It is indeed, convener. I'm sure Mr. Armstrong can confirm that.
Yes, thank you very much, convener.
Okay, that's fine.
And good afternoon, committee. So, as the specific update report on the health and safety risk details, we've made progress on that risk over the course of the last year, particularly as we've implemented and closed off a number of actions within the health and safety action plan. And as a result of that, the overall risk score has been reduced from 12 down to 9. And our objective now is clearly to reduce that further to reach the stated risk appetite of 6 for this particular corporate risk. And I do want to give credit to Paul Conroy and his team, the health and safety team, who've led the work on making that improvement over the last few months, when it's obviously and kind of a pressure time for the whole council around health and safety as we've come out of the pandemic and various other incidents that have been taking place. So some of the main reasons for that reduction in overall risk score is we've made significant progress on the development of our digital health and safety system, and we've been doing that in partnership with 2 other councils, which is always encouraging and very kind of pleasing to see when we can collaborate on pieces of work like that. This digital system is providing services across the council with significantly improved health and safety data and intelligence, and this ranges from the picture that they would get at an individual team level, so for example a specific school, to that data that exists at a directorate level, to what is able to be looked at on an aggregate basis across the whole of and that information is monitored at all these different levels, which gives us a very good kind of insight what's going on in particular services and at particular kind of times of the year. We're seeing significantly improved rates of incident reporting, and one of our objectives now corporately is to build on that culture and recognition of the importance of health and safety in the workplace, and to improve the reporting of near misses so that we are as aware of things that maybe don't become reportable incidents within the system, but are clearly risk areas that are happening in kind of day-to-day operations. And that improved visibility of what's happening on the ground and what's happening at the front line of services enables us to target our improvement actions at the areas of highest risk. So Paul and his team and across the whole kind of corporate health and safety group, we're reviewing and reprioritizing the plan so that we're able to focus our energies on the areas of highest risk. And that ties in with the work we're doing around improved staff training, and particularly the induction of new members of staff into the organisation, and a lot of work that's going into improving risk assessment and the prioritisation of our highest risk. And you'll see that within the report. So, for example, areas around kind of fire assessment and safety. So Paul is with us on the call today, and I'm quite happy for him or I to take any questions that members may have on the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Councillor Bell?
Thank you. Sorry, Paul, about to ask a question. How well used are stress risk assessments across the council? Do you know? Are you seeing maybe an uptake in the use of that as a tool to support people after what has been an incredibly challenging period? Thanks, and thanks for all your work on this.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. I'm sure you're aware the sport for attendance policy was updated last year and shared with the trade unions, and that's been quite a significant piece of work that does link into health, wellbeing and stress. And currently there's a wellbeing group in progress, and also the policy is currently being reviewed and in draft, and the trade unions are involved in that as well. In regards to reporting, the system itself has really helped us to engage better with services. The data that's coming through from the instant reports is actually showing the actions and the outcomes, and where there's gaps, and it's enabling our team to link in with HR and with the services in particular. And we're currently reviewing the stress assessment at the minute in collaboration with Perth and Kinross and Clickmanshire councils as part of our East Scot collaboration with the system, so that we've got a shared reporting tool that's if you like, that's built into the system, and that will be shared with the HR teams across the East Scot group. So that's been a good collaboration effort. So that's just us trying to improve on what we currently do. And also there's a step process with the sport for attendance. So having those record discussions with your staff, going through the wellness action plan process, putting those that help in place through your management, through HR if required, through occupational health, and then if work-related stress is identified, making sure that everyone's involved to try and mitigate that for that member of staff.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions? Comments? Okay. The recommendation in front of us, and it's just one of them. Do we note this report? Good. Thank you very much. And the final item, Mrs. Switzer will be delighted that she can get on the screen, is agenda item number 12, the complaints and compliments report, 1st of October to 31st of December 2020. And I think Mrs. Watson's going to present it, and then Mrs. Squitter will answer any questions we've got.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, just a very brief introduction. This is the quarterly report for complaints. Nothing further for me to say other than Mrs. Whittatt is here to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Any questions? No. Comments? Councillor Speed.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. It was a question or question comment.
No problem.
Thanks. Yeah, it was with regards to, I know that there's been quite a lot of complaints upheld or partially upheld because of communication and perhaps delays in responses. So I just wondered what was being done to improve that, especially when, there's different projects that are looking to tackle and address some of the issues in terms of our access line services, and how we can, I guess, inform people as well in terms of when they make a complaint. It does say online, it does describe that some things that residents want to report are maybe not a complaint as such, they're more a request or for example, reporting that a street light's not working, so it's not an actual complaint. I've had a number of cases lately where people have got in touch with me to say that their complaint's not been answered, but it's perhaps because it's not been a corporate complaint, it's just been an issue that they've been raising, and they've been raising it time and time again, not looking for a response and not perhaps realising that it's already been addressed. I just wonder if there's a bit of work that we need to do around this in terms of us all being clear on the differences of reporting a query, a request and a complaint, because I just feel that during these times of pressure that going forward as councillors, as officers, we might receive more and more requests or complaints from the public, and how will we manage that successfully and effectively?
Okay, who's going to answer this one? Mrs.
Yes, Councillor Fotheringham. I've actually spoken with Councillor Speed about this this week, and there are so many avenues for our public to come in, and I'm happy if it's members wish to put on a lunchtime session, or a development session with members to let them understand the process for the public coming into the council and how it works thereafter. If you were to find that helpful, I'm happy to get that arranged.
I certainly think we would find that helpful, because I know that Councillor Bell, I think it was yourself that many months ago you brought up that you would like to see the compliments included in the report, and they are there, because there is a lot of good work gets done. There's a lot of officers you'll phone up and the things dealt with, and there's other things that's much more complicated. You have to get a contractor to do it, but I think it's good to see the compliments. But I also take Councillor Speed's point. There's so many different avenues that members of the public come into. Is it a complaint? Is it an issue? Is it a repair? So, Elaine, I think that would be excellent.
I'll get that organised. That's no problem at all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, then, any further comment? No, is the report agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, well, it just remains for me to say thank you all for your attendance and your input today. I think that was a good meeting. Thank the officers for your time. And well, the partner agencies have gone. I thought I was going to get my sledge out today. It was snowing in Forfar earlier, but no, I'm afraid not. So that's it. So have a rest of the day. A nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.